Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you notice, I lost the hat because the hot flashes are just unbearable, and I just couldn't do that again. Mid-video, I that I was going to explode. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about the Murdoch case, and I've talked about it before, and this is probably going to be a long one. I'm probably going to clip a short out of the first 3 minutes, and then if you want to see the whole video, it'll be under the video tab in the longer section. Because there's a lot going on in that case, and I have always found the case interesting because I never thought it was investigated properly. Then you throw in the Stephen Smith case that was never investigated at all. And I feel so bad for his mother because how do you go back 7 years on a rural dirt road with no cameras, no cell phone towers, and try to determine who he was meeting? If he was meeting anyone at all, or if there was an accident. I mean, so SLED just did not make a good name for themselves with how they investigated the Murdoch case. And I mean, that's a lawyer, a fixture of the town, accused of murdering his wife and his son. You would think that they would have investigated that. And then they oh, Alex never gave us his clothes. It's not his job to give you his clothes. It's your job to get a warrant and go knock on the door and say, here's a warrant for the clothes you were wearing last night. He never stayed at Moselle again, and he lost 100-some pounds. A lot of those clothes were thrown out. That was on the police to get them, not on the defense to to turn it over. I mean, that's not how the criminal. If you want something and you are the police or the prosecution, if you are on the prosecution side and you want it from the defendant, you need a warrant. This is not new. It's how law is practiced. So I thought there was a lot shady going on with that whole investigation. Then they always said it was a conspiracy because how do you carry two long guns and shoot two people that close together, one of whom was very good with a weapon? So you have to assume Paul was killed first. I mean, they had weapons all over the dog kennel. I mean, they had them in the golf cart. They had them everywhere. Yeah, they had them in their trucks. I mean, these were not weapons that were secured. They had them all over the place because they hunted hogs all over the property. So, it goes from conspiracy to all of a sudden a 6'5", 300 and some pound, very obese, overweight man tumbled into this small confined space like Rambo with two long guns, shoots his son, throws the gun down, and then chases and shoots his wife. It just never made sense to me. I've said that in other videos. If I was on the jury, we'd still be sitting there because other than, okay, you've given me 2.5 weeks of financial crimes, which should never have come in. It was excluded. It should have been excluded under the 404B and 404 rules in general. And because it's not a similar crime. If they had charged him with pushing the housekeeper down the stairs, which I'm not saying he did, he wasn't even home for. I mean, I know it was rumored that maybe Maggie did, but if something like that happened, like say Alex had been accused of that, those are both violent crimes that could be brought in. The financial crimes, especially for the length of time, that and then with what Becky Hill did, that's why they reversed, and they reversed unanimously to prove to every court clerk and anyone that works for the prosecution's office or the police, we have fair trials. I don't care how much you hate the defendant. Even Alex Murdoch needs a fair trial. If he doesn't get one, how do I get one? And I've been a trial twice, hung jury, and they dropped the charges once. So, but how do any of us get a fair trial if it's not deemed worthy to give him one because they don't like him? So I'm glad he got a new trial, but I find it very fascinating that he's suing Becky Hill civilly. Now, he's not keeping any of that money because all his money's going out to his victims. And I doubt she has any money because the book was never published. It was plagiarized. there were all kinds of problems, and then she had court costs and stuff to pay, and her son got in trouble for illegal wiretapping, supposedly, so she could gossip. Unbelievable. So I doubt she's floating in money, but the question is, why are they suing her? And I think it's the deposition process, because you can't force someone in a criminal case to implicate themselves in a crime, but civil actions are not criminal. So you can't hide behind, I can't incriminate myself. No, they're going to depose your butt. And it can be a big fishing expedition. I mean, I was listening to a woman from the UK talking about it. She's like, that doesn't happen in the UK. She's like, the way you can just depose everybody in a civil suit and go on fishing expeditions. And she's like, lawyers can't do that here. She's like, if they're able to depose, it's very straight line, very specific. It has to only do with the case. So I'm wondering if they are going after her in the civil case because there is something they're looking for in that deposition. I don't know that. That is just a guess because I mean, he's not going to get any money out of it. So there's a reason they're doing that. Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin are basically, doing the case, doing the appeal, and retrying the case for free. Alec's out of money. And they're not broke. They can afford to do it pro bono. But my question is, like I said, nobody's winning any money out of the civil suit. So they're not doing it for no reason. These are smart attorneys. Dick Harpootlian's one of the best attorneys in the state, if not the country. I mean, he's an excellent attorney. So I think some of this has to do with them getting depositions. And plus, the state has now been told you cannot introduce 2.5 weeks of this testimony. Now, he pled guilty to those financial crimes, I believe both state and federal, after the murder conviction. That's why he's doing his time in a state facility. Had he pled guilty to the federal financial crimes, he'd be doing his federal time in a federal facility first and then go over the state. But the question I have, and it is rare when you plead guilty, they say you are giving up your right to a trial by jury of your peers. You are aware of this. You have spoken with your attorney. You are now verifying to me. You do not want a trial. You understand what you're giving up. So it's rare that when you enter a plea that you're going to be able to get that plea overturned. But if his plea for guilty on all the financial crimes was, well, I just got convicted of killing my wife and my son, with which I still maintain my innocence. And I felt like I was going to be in prison for the rest of my life. So why not just plead guilty and get it out of the way? Since the facts changed and the guilty verdict was overturned, I would not be surprised if they now try to make a move on his plea to try to have the plea tossed, because if the only reason he pled was because he was found guilty in the murders, plural, and then they find out, oh, the court clerk messed with the jury badly, to the point that unanimously the Supreme Court of the state said, he gets a new trial. So that may or may not affect his plea deal on the financial crimes. And like I said, those are both state and federal. So there is a lot going on in that Murdoch case. So we could be seeing them trying to get the guilty pleas overturned, because those guilty pleas were based on the conviction and for the homicide, and those have now been overturned, and he's always maintained his innocence, at least in terms of the homicides. It might work for them to say, well, he was depressed, he was just convicted of 2 murders, he thought he was doing the rest of his life in prison. Why not plead guilty to something that was way less consequential than what he was accused of, and maintains his innocence over? I don't know. I can't wait till we actually start getting discovery information, because the whole process has to start over. And I know they're saying, oh, they're going after the death penalty. I would be shocked if they do. I know they didn't go after it the first time, even though they were eligible to, because they couldn't get the drugs to. Um, it was funny. The pharmacies wanted to play politics and wouldn't give states that had the death penalty the medication to kill these people. So the state said, okay, we'll just shoot them in several states. I mean, Utah's always had it because it's a thing with the Mormon religion that they believe certain sins can't be forgiven by God. Um, you actually have to spill your own blood on the ground and like electric chair, lethal injection, things like that. You don't bleed. So that's why they've always had um, the option for the firing squad. But now you see it in Idaho and plenty other places that have the death penalty. We're going to kick it in and say, well, you got your choice of this, 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 and this, and they don't want to give us the drugs, but, the death penalty is legal in our state, and, it's already taken us 6, 7 extra years to put some of these people to death, screwing around waiting for the drugs from the drug companies. So, and frankly, well, the idea of being shot sounds terrible. When they pronounce you dead, you're dead within 30 seconds. I mean, if it's not instantaneous, it's under a minute. 45 seconds, 32 seconds. I mean, you're dead. Lethal injection, yeah, you look nice and peaceful because they give you a paralytic so you can't move, but God only knows what you're spasming like inside, and I don't feel sorry for most of these people. They're convicted multiple killers and rapists and just need to be gone off this planet. But my point is that can take 30, 40 minutes, 30, 40 seconds max if you're being shot. I mean, if you're going to talk about a humane death, I'd almost rather be shot right. I mean, they put a thing over you that has like a plus, like a cross sign right where your heart is. And you got 6 people aiming. I don't know how, they're not all loaded. Some have blanks, but still, it's like someone's hitting it, and, you're going to end pretty quickly. Not to get off that morbid subject, but I don't think he's going to get it. I really don't. That first of all, that the defense has to be given time. You have to have a death qualified defense, which I believe Jim Griffin and Harpootlian are death qualified, but assuming Alex didn't have a death qualified defense, then he would have to get all new attorneys that would then have to get caught up on the case. That would extend this out another 2 years. So that's why I am glad that Jim and Dick are staying with the case and, following this through. And I'm going to be following through, the retrial as everything gets refiled and all the motions in limine start and all that stuff. It's going to go on for another 2 years. And then I'm looking to see what happens with the pleas, because I would not be surprised if they don't try to grab those pleas back. And then we shall see what happens with that civil case, because I am fascinated. I think there is going to be a lot that they're going to, I mean, we have no idea, because we have, even after the trial, I mean, the police did not have a lot, in my opinion. What they had was, he stole from a lot of his clients. He's a shady person, so therefore he must have killed his wife and son. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've said this before. I mean, I was a social worker that specialized in domestic violence and substance abuse. I knew some pretty hardcore addicts and alcoholics that you could turn your head and they would steal your wallet, your keys. They would take everything out of your purse, but they would never hurt you. And I find it offensive on several different levels that, they want to draw this link into someone that would steal money from people. And yeah, a lot of these people were disabled and poor and needed the money. And Alex is a jerk for doing that. I'm not defending Alex Murdoch and saying he's a great person. What I'm saying is he did not get a fair trial. I think the evidence is shaky. I think the investigation was horrific. I mean, it ranks up there with, sadly, Nancy Guthrie's. I mean, I just, I, the police that responded didn't involve the FBI, wouldn't give them investigate any information for 4 days. And yet, an 84-year-old woman who couldn't walk more than 50 feet unaided, like even with a walker, like 50 feet was the max. And I'm like, oh, she just wandered off. We're going to look around for her. Wandered off. Her car's in the garage. She didn't drive off. The closest she wandered off to was to an Uber. I mean, the whole, because that thing, I think kind of like the John Bonet case, and I've seen John Ramsey talking about it, how he does hope they find her, and he hopes they he talked about how when he first saw John Bonet, when he's like, relief just flooded to every cell in my body because I found her. And then when I got over her and went to pick her up, I realized she was not breathing, and he probably couldn't see her throat at that point, because they were in the basement. He grabbed her and ran upstairs with her. Now, I'm no fan of Linda Arndt, the detective that was on the scene of that one. And if you are very interested in that case, because I've been fascinated with that case for years, because I never thought it was the parents, and I've seen some excellent profilers who are like, it's not the parents. But I was shocked because I follow Chris McDonough and a lot of his friends that are all experts, and they're with a group called the Cold Case Foundation. And I know they've worked behind the scenes on the John Bonet case. But John Ramsey was doing an interview, and he had said maybe Savannah and her siblings can get in touch with the Cold Case Foundation. He's like, I know the case isn't cold. He's like, but they have been so wonderful. And he's like, they're all experts, forensic psychologists, FBI, homicide detectives, narcotics detectives, and they donate their time and their expertise into studying the case and trying to figure out what on earth happened. Because my husband always believed that it was the parents, that it was one of the parents. And after he saw just a couple comments from a profiler he has the utmost respect for, he's like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. He's like, because I don't have his experience, and if he believes it, then, I'd take his opinion over mine. So, I did see John Ramsey on with Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough has a YouTube channel. He's affiliated with the Cold Case Foundation. But like I said, I saw John Ramsey interviewed on another show, and I just was floored because he brought them up. Now, I've seen McDonough occasionally on Nancy Grace or sometimes on Nighttime News, but he doesn't go on a lot of shows very often. I mean, they do sometimes 3, 4, 5 hour live streams because they'll have 6, 7 experts, where it's like, it looks like the Brady Bunch with all the heads, and someone will have to go, and then someone new pops in. But they're experts, and they know what they're talking about. So, if you are interested at all in the John Bonet case, or cold cases in general, or their opinion on what's going on with the Nancy Guthrie case, kind of behind the scenes, and, Chris McDonough's wife, Karen, she's beautiful. He tells her that every day. I love it. He's always like, I married way up. My wife is the most beautiful, smartest woman I've ever met. I mean, he's so loving to her, and I think it's sweet. I really do. So few people will do that publicly. And I just think it's sweet that he values her so much. And she's an investigative reporter, so she will get in. And she actually, how they met was she wanted to interview him. And for 2.5 years, he's like, I don't do interviews. And she ended up coming down to the station, but she ended up working for their department as the person Sheriff Nanos needs, the person that talks to the media and knows what to say and what not to say. That was one of her jobs, but she is an investigative reporter, and has she dug up some dirt on both Nanos and back during the Idaho case on the University of Idaho and the police department. I don't mean the campus police. I mean the sheriff's department. There was nonsense going on with that, and I don't remember it well enough to even attempt to regurgitate it, but it is on Chris McDonough's YouTube channel on their Idaho 4 list, and because she got documents that she FOIA'd about money they got, millions and millions they got, and they didn't even build a memorial for the dead kids. It was a memorial for everyone that ever died that went to the school, but for the 4 that were butchered, no memorial for them, just something on their property where their house that they loved once. I mean, it's just, but it talks about all the transfers and all the people that, oh, this chief retired, and then he ended up over here, and this one retired and ended up at Washington. And Karen did a lot of digging on that, Karen McDonough. And her and her husband have a great YouTube channel, so check them out. And I always try to get my sources, and anyone that is useful to me, I always try to pass them on, so that you guys can, check them out. Maybe you like them, maybe you won't, but I find these different people helpful. So thank you for watching the long version. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. But yeah, so I am watching Murdoch. I will not be covering Mackenzie Shrill. I just did a little episode about it, and I literally had a hot flash talking about that girl. I'd like to slap her. Even Corey Richards doesn't make me want to come through the screen and slap her. I'd like to sit there in public right next to her. Like, I'd like to go meet with her in the jail and just sit and roll my eyes and make those ridiculous faces at her for an hour. But she doesn't have the same effect on me. I can't think of anyone that has the effect on me that Mackenzie does. And now she's Kenzie. Oh, and now they call her Sharilla the Killer. That's lovely. I'm sure her victims' families are real impressed with that. Sharilla the Killer. I'm sure anyone calls her that, unless she's paying them to. But I don't want a hot flash. I'm not talking about that girl. But yeah, so Alex Murdoch, anything to do with Corey Richards, she's going to file an appeal. I don't think it's going anywhere. The David case. And then I am trying to see if there's any new info on Lynette Hooker. I know that the Coast Guard is down there diving at the GPS locations that they found on Brian's Navionics watch, his sailing watch. So I pray that they are able to find some proof that she was down there. I mean, her weight belt, like for scuba diving, or her headscarf, something, just so, I mean, I know fish and sharks feed. They're not eating plastic and chains and stuff, but, there might not be much left. It's been a long time, but I hope they're able to find something so that they can let her family know. So I will be keeping an eye on those cases, and when I have news, I will post. So thank you very much for watching the long version, and please like, share, subscribe, do all the wonderful YouTube things, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.